Chapter 4 Todd's Family. Without any place to stay besides the monastery, Victor wanted to remain there, but Todd wasn't having any of it. Todd kept insisting Victor stay in his den while thinking to himself, "You've been through non-stop trouble for almost your 1,000-year-old life. I'm taking care of you whether you like it or not." And when Todd had strongly encouraged Victor to stay in his den, Victor noticed Todd's den was not like the other extravagant houses. It was a little hole in the side of a hill, with a stained glass window peeking out the sides and a brick chimney out of the top of the hill, with a well-kept garden in front of the door. And for the home of someone married to Inari's executor Vixie, it was quite simple. There were no expensive works of art, no ornate furniture or dishes, or anything of luxury except Vixie's ornate silk robes for official business as Inari's executor. Otherwise, the only thing ornate was a little corner on the east wall of the den with images of various saints, with a beeswax candle, incense burner, and a 76-book Bible written in late medieval Kitsune language. And there's a small statue of Moshi the Blacktail belonging to Vixie's Tanuki servant, Dixie. In the house, anyone could smell the sweet aroma of sweet bread baking in Vixie's oven, while Vixie herself was dressed in her regular plain robes, with a veil concealing her fox ears. As for Vixie herself, she stood in a confident yet modest posture, as her iridescent violet eyes shrewdly peered into Victor's face. Then her 9 snow-white tails with violet tips twitched as she asked, "I assume you came here because Inari told you what happened?" Victor then looked back into Vixie's Arctic fox face and answered, "I came back because the clan needed me, and I was not here when they needed me the most." Vixie then sipped from her glass of wine. "With all respect and humility, I have to remind you what happened to the clan wasn't your fault. I tried to do the best I could, but it wasn't enough. And Inari is the real person behind this. But she's too arrogant and self-indulgent to see it's her fault, or face anything that's uncomfortable but necessary, like, constructive criticism. Yet, I'm powerless to remove her from power and replace her with someone better, because the ignorant and weak-minded basically worship her." Victor then twitched one fox ear in curiosity and asked, "And if you could replace her, who would you replace her with?" And without hesitation, Vixie answered, "Probably either you or Zenko. Then again, Zenko might have a big heart, but she's not very bright. So I guess that just leaves you." Victor then thought about the possibility of becoming a monarch of the Kitsune clan, but immediately rejected it, saying, "If you're asking me to rule the clan, you're looking for the wrong person. I'm not a political mastermind, nor have I any experience or interest in politics." Vixie then almost inquisitively stared into Victor's eyes. "Then perhaps I can help you. And for as much as I've known both your sisters, you're the only one Inari considers her equal, and actually has respect for. And for that, perhaps she will listen to you." Todd then interjected, "Vixie, I know you were raised in a wealthy and powerful family within the clan, but I don't think politics are going to solve all the clan's problems. Sure, you can burn every Inari shrine in the clan, but that's not going to change the hearts for the better. And I highly doubt our spiritual father's sister is going to approve of such a thing, because it will incite pointless conflicts and break the public order." Vixie then thought for a moment and said, "You have some good points, but it would accomplish at least partially shutting down that debauchery. I don't know when the last time you've been to an Inari shrine was, but Inari herself has a ceremonial solidarity orgy in her palace as part of worshipping Okami Inari, where everyone was silk-laced with gold. I became so physically ill when I saw that, and wanted to claw my own eyes out and rip my ears off my head and cut off my own nose. I couldn't stand to see, hear, or smell that. I can't stand to see what Inari has done to the clan so much that being home with you seems like the only way I can get away from her. Even if I'm only in her physical presence performing executive functions. Todd then held his wife close to him. Darling, for as much as I know you hate serving Inari, I don't think there's anyone more suited for her executor than you. Without you in that position, the clan would be way worse than it is now. It might not even be her as we speak if it wasn't for you. Vixie then twitched her nose. But it doesn't make me hate serving Inari any less. Then to see the way she treated Yako made things even more unbearable for me. Sure, Yako may have done some bad stuff in his past, and truly lived up to being called a no-jitsune, when it actually meant something. He changed his life for the better centuries ago. And now he's dead, because Inari sent him on a suicide mission to kill some Tanuki ace for a slight that wasn't even personal. We're fortunate Yako was one of the best pilots in the KCAF and survived the first encounter with that Tanuki. Dixie, Vixie's servant, then overheard the conversation and said, "As one of the only people in this clan that knows about it, and how much Inari hates my kind, I can understand why she had it so it said a Celanese Imperial ace shot down Yako. Because at least in her mind, it's more respectable to be killed by a Celanese ace than it is someone who looks like me. But I can't say my clan is much better, with how it's being exaggerated to sound like some glorious victory over the Kitsune clan. That Tanuki wasn't even from the Tanuki clan, but some American ace who got forced into serving the Celanese Empire. She wasn't even one that killed Yako, but her wingman James Wolfe. So, if anything, it's a victory of the Inu tribes. But like all ethnic conflicts, no one really wins anyway. There's always more than one side of every story, unlike those lying politicians that try to get the unthinking masses to vote for them." Todd then asked, "What about my wife? She runs a political office." Dixie then held her paw hand while gently twitching her tanuki tail. "For one, Vixie isn't a politician because she actually has leadership, and not just someone trying to calm people for their vote. She actually does what she says she's going to do. And not only that, but she also tries to bring out the best in people. And she has the humility to admit when she's wrong and accept constructive criticism. Just basic skills anyone seeking power and ambition doesn't have, but so valuable no one can put a price on it. And that's something Inari will never have, because all she has is all the money in the world, but none of the things money can't buy that truly matter. And maybe if Inari didn't have an ego the size of her hoard that makes Smaug from The Hobbit look like chump change, I might even have some sympathy for her. But because of the way she acts like that, I don't feel anything for her, because she brought this on herself." Todd then said, "It still baffles me why someone as talented and capable as Inari would waste her life on such vanity and hedonism. If she didn't act like that, perhaps she could have changed the world for the better. Just think if she just invested even 1% of her resources in others. How many lives would be made better? Yet, she just hoards it for herself. And there comes a point where one has to ask the question, at what point does having more money even matter? If I may ask, Friar Victor, how is it that you have such the will not to condemn your own sister after everything she's done? I don't understand how you don't see her as someone already condemned and deserve to be stripped of all she has and punished." Victor then contemplated Todd's question and answered, "I'll ask a couple questions of my own for you to think about. Have you ever been vain, taken more than you should have, looked at pornography, or used other people? Have you ever engaged in an act of hedonism or ever thought yourself superior to anyone, even for a moment? Have you ever sought revenge against anyone in practice or in thought only, even over most minor of inconveniences? If you have never done any of these things once in your 7th century life, take a brick off your fireplace, march to Inari's palace, and throw it at her. Todd then remembered his confessions and answered, "But I have done those things." "Then how are you different from Inari whom you condemn?" Todd then thinks for a moment, feeling puffed up that Victor would even compare him to Inari. "I'm different from her because I recognize it as a problem and work to remove it from myself." Victor then spoke calmly. "And she can't do that too?" Todd then felt Victor's question strike at his own ego and answered, "I don't know. Can she?" Victor then sensed Todd repented of his ego trip and answered, "That's for her to decide. It's not my place to condemn her or anyone else. I can only condemn her sins but not herself, for I have committed the same sins as my sister. Therefore, I am in no place to condemn her lest I condemn myself in the process. I also recognize there are many layers to what my sister is doing, and she's not this evil monster she's painted as. And what makes you think that? I'll tell you, starting with our mother in the image of Inari before you were even born." Inari and Victor's upbringing. It was the 1200s, as Inari and Victor had both gained their 7 tails. Both were the highest achievers their royal tutors have ever seen. But as the two grew older, they began to go their separate ways. Victor, after gaining his 7 tails, began to contemplate what it truly means to live a good life, while Inari pursued her passions of business, craftsmanship, and agriculture. And although he sought to live the 3 virtues of the Kitsune culture, honor, sincerity, and purity, he felt as though he was missing something. So, Victor began to seek things deeper than material pleasures and superficialities, and spent day and night reading the greatest philosophers of the Kitsune clan. They even included the works of ancient Solsuran and Ceylonese philosophers that had been brought to the clan so many centuries ago from Tanuki pirates and bandits, trading their stolen wares from around the known world. But none of the great philosophers could satisfy Victor's hunger, so he only half-heartedly attended the lavish Inari festivals, tournaments, and the arts, having become bored of pleasures. But one day, a Solsuran man in a black robe wearing a pectoral cross around his neck, and a long beard crossed his path in the marketplace. Victor, naturally seeing something out of the ordinary, began to follow him for hours until he returned to a small house with only 2 other men just like him. The man then asked Victor, "Have I taken something that was yours? You have been following me all day." And naturally giving a witty response, Victor answered, "You have stolen my interest. Who are you and what are you doing in my clan?" The man then bowed before Victor and answered, "My good prince, I am Hyro monk Nicholas, and I have come into your clan to buy some food from my brothers in your marketplace. We have fasted for 3 whole days and would like to have something to eat." Young Victor then flicked his 7 tails and twitched his fox ears, unsure of what to think. "Not eating for 3 days? While we have an abundance of food from Okami Inari, why do you not eat and enjoy this harvest?" Nicholas then answered young Victor, "We fast for the purification of our souls and bodies and to control ourselves. We seek higher things than material pleasures and have lost interest in worldly pursuits." And seeing someone like him for the first time, even though he wasn't a kitsune, piqued his curiosity. And how do you do that? I too am a person who seeks things beyond fleeting materialism. Nicholas then warmly smiled while inviting Victor to sit down and join him and his brothers for a meal. Come and see. And ever since then, Victor would visit Nicholas every Sunday until eventually every day, and spending long hours conversing with him. Victor would then become a catechumen with the approval of both his sisters Inari and Zenko, and eventually be baptized and chrismated and fully denounced Okami Inari. And when his mother, Image of Inari, heard of this, she disowned him and banished him from the clan after his refusal to recant his denunciation. And then she hired men to chase after Victor and torment and buffet him so he would never find rest wherever he went, even so far as across another continent, all the way in the medieval Celanese kingdoms. As for Inari, her heart ached in her twin brother's absence, and even worse was Zenka, who could not stop crying herself to sleep after seeing her brother banished, and lost all interest in pursuing the things she used to love. And while Inari's heart still ached over her twin brother, her mother said, I hope you understand what will happen if you become a failure like your dead brother. And you won't. You're going to become the image of Inari in his place, and not just another failure. And for it, I will see to it that you become better than him, and all these lowly commoners who are at my mercy. Now, get up and stop crying over your dead brother, while I make you into the image of success and perfection. And ever since then, Inari no longer pursued her passions out of love, but out of fear of failure and what her mother might do to her. Dinner. Victor then said, and that's partially why Inari acts the way she does. Vixie Reddington then asked, how come you never shared this with me and my husband before? You never asked me before, and now I've been given the opportunity. Like Moshi the Blacktail taught me with the Tanukis, there's always more than one side to every story. And I thought now is a good time to share the other side of Inari's story. Dixie then clicked her tongue and said, I knew it. Superiority complexes usually had some deep-rooted insecurity. Still baffles me why someone as successful and talented as her would be so insecure. Unless the only reason she's there is because of fragile lies and deceptions. Todd then said sarcastically, You don't say. Still, even though I can't stand what she does, at least she's somewhat understandable, even if unjustifiable. But I guess that separates you from Inari. Whereas you seek spiritual perfection for the benefit and salvation of others, Inari is a perfectionist because she fears being seen as a failure and needs to constantly reaffirm herself because otherwise she might just have to face her own imperfections. Victor then said, It's not a fate I'd wish on anyone. I'd also like to thank you again for allowing me to stay in your home and offering me a comfortable bed and making me a wonderful meal. I haven't had food this good since a Tanuki friend of mine cooked a USDA prime ribeye and gave me a glass of dragon milk from his girlfriend's dragon. Dixie then said, I heard dragon milk is some good stuff. Anyway, I'll clean this up after dinner. You don't have to worry about a thing. Inari and Blondie. While Inari was cuddling Blondie in her bed, she couldn't help but notice the wolf Inu wag his tail as she cuddled him. She then whispered in a calm voice, I take it you like my company. Blondie then answered, You're just so soft and fluffy and gorgeous. I'm not even a kitsune and I find you beautiful. Don't get too carried away. You're not permanently hired to cuddle, you know. I know, it's just I thought you'd be a much meaner person from what I heard about you. Well, I can't say I'm easygoing with a lot of people, but after Yako died, it really caused me to start to rethink my life. It's not other people's fault they can't be as perfect as me, so I've learned to be more lenient with them. Plus, you're someone I kind of like, not in a romantic way, but someone I can talk to. And maybe if I didn't push my brother away, I still have him to talk to right now. Well, you did kind of act a little harsh when he decided he wanted to live in that monastery, instead of your palace filled with porn and hedonism. Blondie, don't push it. But for now, let's get some sleep. I'm going to see my brother tomorrow morning while you work on finding Gumiho. Blondie then went to sleep while Inari remained partially awake. She then thought to herself, why am I this way? Why can't I have as many tails as my brother? It doesn't matter. I'm still the image of Inari. I'm not letting this little tails problem beat me. Inari then stopped her train of thought and restarted. No, I shouldn't hate him. He's my own flesh and blood. I hate him, yet he's the only trying to help me. No, you're a disgrace to Okami and I never deserve, and you deserve your own poverty and suffering. No, he's my family. I don't care. He's pursuing purity in his own way, and is the greatest the clan has ever seen. I'm a failure of the Injured Minori, and I'll never be good enough. It's only a matter of time before people I know how much of a failure I am. No, make these thoughts stop! Inari then couldn't sleep well for the rest of the night, only to wake up haggard and sleep half the day before going to meet Victor at Vixie's house. Did you know this? The phrase, come and see. This is a common saying on Eastern Orthodox churches as well as a general rule of thumb in Eastern Orthodox evangelism. Unlike many Protestant evangelists, Orthodox Christians tend to avoid proselytizing as much as possible, preferring rather that people freely choose to accept or reject orthodoxy, believing in that order of faith to be genuine and must be freely chosen without coercion or bribes. And compared to many Protestant Christian traditions, the Orthodox tradition tends to be very sober and very worshipful, in a way of life as opposed to being almost entirely a set of propositions and beliefs and a signed statement of faith.